Welcome to Pick Up and Deliver, the podcast where I pick up my audio recorder as I step off the train and deliver an episode to you while I walk home. I'm Brendan Riley. Well, good afternoon, listener. It's a lovely day here in suburban Chicago. It is cicada season, so I'm having to step around a lot of dead cicadas on the sidewalk. And if you listen, you can hear them buzzing in the trees. We'll see if they pick up on the microphone or not. Well, I was looking and it's been a while since I've done a movie roundup. In fact, the last time I did one, it was the February movie roundup, and it's now May. So it seems like it's time to do a new movie roundup. That's right. We're going to do the March 2024 movie roundup. For those of you new to a movie roundup episode or podcast, in this episode, I talk about the movies that I watched in the previous month, or sometimes 2 months if I didn't watch a ton of movies. And sometimes I talk about them in the context of what would be a good game to pair with them. Sometimes I just talk about the movies. This is less a board game episode than other ones, so if you want to skip it, I guess you can. I hope you won't, but there it is. So, March 2024 movies. The first movie I watched in March 2024 was Saw X, the 10th movie in the franchise about the puzzle-based serial killer. What's his name? I can't remember his name. Saw Man, Jigsaw. Like some of the previous ones, this one takes place. The narratives of these movies, if you lay them on a chronological time path, they overlap in weird ways. And Saw 10 overlaps with some of the others in pretty interesting ways, but it takes place back when Jigsaw was alive. It's not a follow-on movie like some of the other ones. And in this one, he is trying to find a cure for cancer. So here's the wild part about this one. In Saw 10, Jigsaw is kind of the good guy. I mean, not really. He's still murdering people, but the people he's murdering are so odious in this movie that you don't really mind that he's murdering them. I mean, part of what made the previous movies interesting or compelling, maybe, other than the wild traps, is that Jigsaw was murdering people who didn't necessarily deserve to be murdered, right? He thought that they were not making the most of their lives, but often the way that they were not making the most of their lives didn't necessarily reasonably translate into a capital crime. In this one, there might be some argument that it should. I don't know. I don't want to give away too much. But it's a weird movie to have the villain of the series be the most likable character in the movie and somebody you're kind of cheering for, which is kind of what happens. Yeah, what a weird one. The traps were moderately interesting as usual. One of the things I don't like, this is true in a number of the traps, usually the sort of second or third trap we see in the movie, one that we just know the character is not going to survive. Often they require the character to do something horrific to their own body. That's usually the trick in the Saw movie. They have to do something horrible to themselves in order to survive. But often there is a delay between them doing the thing and the trap stopping that seems a little unfair. And the second one in this one, which involves a lady sawing off her own leg, seemed particularly nasty to me in terms of how much delay there was between her accomplishing the horrific self-mutilation and the trap triggering her survival. So anyway, if you've liked the last couple Saw movies, if you liked Spiral, A Tale from the Saw universe, listen to those cicadas. You will probably like Saw 10. If not, this is not the one to start with, I don't think. There's a lot of assumptions that you know what's going on in the movies before you watch them. So that's Saw 10. I don't remember what I recommended last time we watched a movie like this. Maybe an escape room. Unlock, I think, is probably what I recommended before. And that goes again with it. Next up, we've got The Wedding Singer. This is a movie I just really enjoy. My wife and I we're very tired. What's something we could watch that's just fun to watch? Adam Sandler's The Wedding Singer is peak Adam Sandler for me. He's at his most likable. It's a cute movie. Drew Barrymore is very likable in this one. Top marks all around. I love that movie. I don't know I guess you could play Fog of Love, which is the romantic comedy movie, but I don't actually found that game kind of stressful rather than funny. Maybe something like Marrying Mr. Darcy would fit. that one. Something cute and light about romantic comedies. Next up, I watched Dune again. Sort of thinking toward the new Dune movie, but I never got around to going to see Dune in the theater. Dune 2, the Dunening. But I rewatched the first one. It's good as always, very enjoyable. I don't know that I have a lot more to say about it. I think in a previous episode I talked about it, so I'll let you go listen to that if you want. Obviously the game to play with that one is Dune, or perhaps Dune Imperium, depending which of those flavors of game you like. The next movie I really enjoyed was The Cheap Detective. The Cheap Detective is a Neil Simon, I believe it's a Neil Simon comedy, and the main character is basically Humphrey Bogart playing a mix of his characters from, it's basically Peter Falk playing as Humphrey Bogart's characters in Casablanca and The Maltese Falcon. It's a mashup of those two movies with a comedy twist. There are elements of it that are very funny if you like those genres, if you've seen those movies, if you like Peter Falk. It is a winner. It's very funny. I really enjoyed it. We had a lot of fun watching it and a lot of fun with it. It's called The Cheap Detective because he never tips, and that's pretty funny. Overall, it's a great movie, lots of good dialogue and tons of people in it. When you're watching it, you're like, oh, that person, oh, that person. If you know movies from like the 70s, there's no shortage of people to watch in that film. That said, it is also a movie made in the 70s, and it has some real problems. As with a lot of comedy in the 70s, there's stuff that doesn't age well. In particular, for The Cheap Detective, the movie has a lot of casual misogyny. I mean, a lot. There's not much for female characters to do except be sexy. And then the movie has, at least it's sort of making fun of the main character for his promiscuity, even if it's also making fun of the women for their promiscuity. It's at least satirizing it a little bit. But the movie also seems to have a lot of fun making fun of names with Asian origins. That doesn't seem to be ironic. It seems to be like, isn't it funny that some Asian names sound like English words that are funny? Is the joke. And that's not cool. Yeah, the sort of casual sexism and racism of the 1970s is part of that movie, and be aware of it if you are going to watch it. I would still say it's the it's my third favorite comedy detective movie from the last half of the 70s or the first half of the 80s. Surprisingly, I have 5 movies to compare it to. Oh, actually 6. There's Clue, which is my favorite. Dead Men Don't Wear Plaid, which would be my second favorite. The Cheap Detective is my third favorite. Then I also put into that category Murder by Death, and there's a Clint Eastwood one, Red Heat, maybe is what it's called, something like that, which is also a comedy. I feel like there was one more comedy from that era, hardboiled detective comedy movie. Anyhow, it's worth watching if that seems like your thing. And I would say the game to connect to it would probably be Awkward Guests. That game has a lot of humor built into the way the characters look, even though it is pretty serious as a murder game. But that would be a nice pairing with The Cheap Detective. The next one is The Mystery of the 13th Guest. This is a movie that I watched just because I was looking for something to watch and this was available. It is a classic noir thriller with a weird outcome. I really can't recall what grabbed us to watch it, except it said it was available to watch, and we thought, oh, that'll be amusing. I think maybe I watched it late at night while I was waiting for my daughter to get home from an activity out. It's from 1943. It was amusing. It might be more of a Mysterium type deal if you're looking for a game that would go well with it. It is a movie that had a bit of a haunted feel to it. Well, the cicadas are very loud around here right now, so if you were going to pick them up, you would right now. And it's that buzzing sound in the background that kind of goes in and out. Next up, we watched The Holdovers. This is the more recent film from Alexander Payne, I believe is the director. And Paul Giamatti is the main actor from it. We last saw them when they made the movie about wine, Sideways, which was very good as well. In The Holdovers, Paul Giamatti plays a very cranky English teacher at a very reserved boys' literature or boys' school in the 60s. He seems to revel in punishing the boys for not studying hard, and he assigns a lot of work and is very cantankerous is the right word. They're a ne'er-do-well sort of scofflaw boy end up being left at the school over Christmas break, as does one housekeeper slash cook who is alone at Christmas because her son died in Vietnam. So it must be early 70s then, now that I think about it. It's a really compelling movie. The main characters are interesting. It wasn't for me as good as all of the reviews seem to make it sound like it was going to be, but the longer I sit with the movie, the longer I wait, the more I enjoyed it, which is always a crucial thing. Like, as I think about the movie, I recall it fondly and interestingly, versus sometimes over time my interest in the movie drops rather than grows. So there's a lot going on there, and it was really well made, an interesting character study, particularly if you like Paul Giamatti. I have no idea what kind of game would fit there. Perhaps you could play Miskatonic School for Girls, which is at least about a private school. Or there's also Argent the Consortium, which is sort of like a Hogwarts type deal, but still about a private school. Miskatonic School for Girls, the advantage to doing that is they have the expansion called Winter Break, which adds Christmas themed stuff to the game. And the Winter Break expansion would fit nicely if you're playing the Holdovers. The final movie I want to talk about is Dumb Money. Dumb Money is a sort of docudrama about the vlogger Keith Gill, who was sort of the head of the conversation in Wall Street bets around the GameStop short squeeze. If you don't know what that is, go look up GameStop short squeeze. I'm not going to try to explain it here on the podcast, but it is an amusing depiction of the weird stuff that happens with regard to money, and an enjoyable way to spend an evening watching a movie about that. It was well made and funny, and definitely worth checking out if you get a chance. Now, the short squeeze was not a scam necessarily, but I think it is useful to think about how it might have been portrayed that way. So maybe as a game to go along with watching Dumb Money, you should play Ponzi Scheme, which is about Charles Ponzi and his famous eponymous scheme. If you do, let me know how it is. I have that on my shelf, but I haven't played it yet. Well, thanks for joining me on my walk today. I hope your next walk is as pleasant as mine was. Bye-bye. And that goes again with it. Ugh. Excuse me. Cicada just landed on my hand. Ugh. Okay.
Brought to you by Rattlebox Games.